Up next in the broadcast, Red Cross officials from South and North Korea meet to discuss the resumption of reunions for families still separated by the Korean War. Raising hopes amid economic uncertainty, better than expected figures come out of the United States, Europe, and China, while the numbers show Korea is still in good shape to weather the global slump. South Korea successfully sends the Arirang 5 satellite into space. The multipurpose satellite allows the nation for the first time to receive high-resolution radar images day or night and rain or shine. Late Night Edition starts now. Welcome to Arirang News. I'm Sean Lim, and this is Late Night Edition. Next month, some families still separated by the Korean War will get the chance to reunite at the Mount Kumgang Resort in North Korea. It took a full day of negotiations on matters including how many people would be selected to the dates, but this reunion may be just the start of a new series of regular family gatherings. Here's our Unification Ministry correspondent Hwang Sung-hee, who followed today's inter-Korean dialogue.
After nearly 12 hours of marathon negotiations on Friday, the two Koreas agreed to hold reunions for separated families at the end of next month at Mount Kumgang.
We agreed to hold face-to-face reunions from September 25th to the 30th to coincide with the Korean Thanksgiving holiday at Mount Kumgang with 100 family members from each Koreas.
At issue was the location and the scale of the reunion. Initially, Seoul had proposed to hold the reunion in either Seoul or Pyongyang to reunite as many family members as possible. The ideal number of participants for the South was about 200 from each side. But while Seoul seems to have given in to North Korea's proposal, the two sides agreed to hold another round of reunions sometime in November this year and to meet for further discussions on the issue immediately after the first reunion next month. The two sides will also hold video reunions for 2 days from October 22nd to 23rd with 40 families from each side. In preparation for next month's reunion, the Koreas will begin conducting checkups on the surviving family members starting from August 29th. The family members have been separated since the Korean War in the 1950s, so most of them are now over the age of 70. The final lists of participants will be exchanged on September 16th. The two Koreas agreed to work towards holding reunions on a regular basis, as well as allowing them to exchange letters as part of efforts towards a fundamental solution to the issue of divided families. Meanwhile, the issue of resuming South Korean tours to the Mount Kumgang Resort was not brought up at Friday's talks. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, for the second straight day, South Korean company owners with factories at the Joint Industrial Complex in Kaesong crossed the border on Friday to check on the conditions of their facilities. The trip by a group of more than 300 people, including government officials and textile factory owners, follows a visit by a separate group of South Korean businessmen a day earlier. The inter-Korean Kaesong Industrial Complex has been shuttered for more than 4 months after the North unilaterally withdrew all its workers. Amid thawing inter-Korean relations, we ended the week with stories of two unrelated escapees who defected from the North. First, a defector from the North who may have swam to a South Korean island from North Korea knocked on the door of a resident early Friday morning. And second, word that a South Korean fisherman abducted by the North 41 years ago will come home soon. Park Ji-won tells us more.
South Korean fisherman Jeon Uk-pyo was one of 25 people abducted by North Korea in December 1972 when 2 fishing boats were seized by North Korea. Jeon was 27 years old at the time. 41 years after being taken, the 68-year-old abductee finally escaped the North earlier this month. This is according to the president of the abductees' family union, Choi Sung-yong, who spoke on Friday. Che said the abductee is now safe in another country under official protection by the Korean government and will be arriving in South Korea soon. Che also released a letter that John sent to President Park Geun-hye expressing his wish to spend the rest of his life in his hometown and a desire to be buried on South Korean soil. Meanwhile, another North Korean man defected to South Korea on early Friday. The 46-year-old defector knocked on the door of a home on Gyeodong Island in the West Sea at around 3:40 a.m. Officials believe the man swam across the maritime border to the western island. Authorities are currently questioning the man about his motivation for defecting to the south. Experts say it remains to be seen how this will affect the current improvement in inter-Korean relations. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Over now to the meeting between President Park Geun-hye and UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. The two leaders on Friday discussed ways to increase cooperation between Korea and the UN on pending global issues. Our presidential office correspondent Oh Jin-ju has more on how restoring peace on the Korean peninsula is at the top of the agenda.
President Park called for UN support in creating a peace park along with the two Koreas in the demilitarized zone. In her second meeting with UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon since taking office in February, the president emphasized that the peace park would be of great help in easing tensions on the peninsula and building trust between the South and North. In response, the UN chief vowed to actively cooperate in creating the peace park and give detailed advice on setting up a regulatory framework, but only after the two Koreas come to an agreement on the matter first. Meanwhile, President Park promised to continue providing North Korea with humanitarian aid regardless of the political situation as part of her push for a trust-building process with Pyongyang and closely cooperate with the UN to make sure the aid reaches the people in need. Pan expressed his appreciation for South Korea's offer to provide more than $6 million in aid through UNICEF in July, saying that it will help at least 20,000 children in North Korea get vaccinated. He also praised President Park's North Korea policy, saying that her push for a trust-building process with the North has made possible the normalization of the Kaesong Industrial Complex and working-level talks for inter-Korean family reunions. Oh Jin-ju, Arirang News.
And following his meeting with President Park Geun-hye, UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon met with Korean Prime Minister Jong Hong-won on Friday afternoon, where Pan again pledged to support the Park administration's North Korea policies.
As the president's trust-building process has been steadily making progress, the United Nations will play a complementary role in the process to solve problems between the two Koreas through dialogue.
Secretary General Pan's Korea trip is scheduled for 6 days. Over the weekend, he will attend the opening ceremony of this year's World Rowing Championships held in Chungju, North Chungcheong Province, and visit his hometown of Eumseong. A special parliamentary probe into allegations that the intelligence agency interfered in last year's presidential election came to an end on Friday, but the ruling and opposition parties failed to reach any conclusions over the matter. In fact, the two sides even failed to issue a closing report. Kim Yeon-ji has more on the puzzling outcome.
At the end of the 53-day probe, ruling party lawmakers reiterated their previous stance that neither the National Intelligence Service nor the Seoul Metropolitan Police did anything that could be deemed inappropriate. Former NIS Director Won Se-hoon stands accused of ordering a systematic smear campaign online against opposition presidential candidates before the December election. Former Seoul Police Chief Kim Yong-pan is accused of forcing a press release of the police probe into the case just 3 days before the election that he knew at the time was false. Ruling party lawmakers said the charges against Won and Kim are unjustified and that prosecutors were wrong to issue such an indictment. However, opposition lawmakers argue that the probe helped uncover evidence that Won and Kim abused their power and purposely influenced the outcome of the presidential election in favor of ruling party. During the probe, a female NIS agent who was caught posting politically sensitive comments online before the election testified that she was only doing her job, responding to North Korean propaganda in cyberspace. Ruling party lawmakers say the agent was only fulfilling her duties. But opposition lawmakers say virtually all of her postings were related to opposition presidential candidates, and very few to North Korea. A police officer who led the investigation into the spy agency scandal at Seoul Suseol Police Station testified that the Seoul Metropolitan Police Agency overseeing her station tampered with her team's investigation. Opposition lawmakers believe there was tampering from above, while the ruling party disagrees. From the get-go, the rival parties had very different ideas about the case, and the probe fell apart many times in the nearly 2-month period. Ruling party lawmakers called the probe to an end Friday, but unsatisfied opposition lawmakers say a team of special prosecutors should step in and probe the secretive intelligence agency. Kim Hyun-ji, Arirang News.
As Asia turns out the lights, get full coverage of the day's events on the Korean Peninsula. Late Night Edition with Sean Lim. From North Korea to tech and innovation, catch up with those who know Seoul before the next day begins. Late Night Edition.
Korea's fourth multi-purpose satellite, the Arirang 5, has been successfully launched into space. The latest addition to the country's satellite series will provide more comprehensive observation data for Korea, enabling high-definition monitoring at any time under any weather condition. Our Song Ji-sun explains.
Korea's multi-purpose satellite, Arirang 5, has continually confirmed its successful deployment into its target orbit. The satellite was launched at 11:39 p.m. Thursday night Korea time at Russia's Yasny site in Russia's Dnepr rocket and separated from its fairing and carrier as scheduled. Its first beacon signals were initially picked up by the Troll satellite station in Antarctica 32 minutes following the launch, and at 5:35 a.m. Friday morning Korea time, about 6 hours after blastoff, Arirang 5 made contact with Daejeon's ground station of Korea Aerospace Research Institute. The most notable feature of this latest satellite is its SAR, short for synthetic aperture radar, that can observe and photograph the Earth's surface at any time, regardless of weather conditions.
Arirang 5 emits microwaves that will be reflected after reaching the Earth's surface. That data enable us to obtain three-dimensional images with accurate figures.
After 6 months of adjusting its orbit and testing its assigned tasks, Arirang 5 will orbit the Earth at an average altitude of 550 kilometers, monitoring the ocean, the environment, and natural disasters, along with its predecessors, the Arirang 2 and 3 satellites. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
And some positive news on the economic front. Business surveys show that the world economy is showing signs of recovery with better than expected business growth in Europe, a rebound in China's large manufacturing sector, as well as improved employment figures from the United States. Yu Lian reports on the worldwide rebound.
New business data shows the world economy is finally picking up steam. The United States, which is an important anchor for growth across the globe, saw its manufacturing expand in August at its fastest pace in 5 months. Claims for unemployment insurance, meanwhile, stood at a 6-year low, according to financial firm Market. Over in Europe, Market said business activity across the Eurozone picked up at a faster pace than expected, putting the Flash Composite Purchasing Managers Index in August at over 51. A reading over 50 indicates expansion. This was also the highest index recorded since mid-2011. Market also said Eurozone's largest economy, Germany, saw its business activity grow at the fastest pace in 7 months. Moving on over to China, the world's second largest economy, the index there rose to a 4-month high of 50.1 from July's reading of 47.7, showing moderate growth. Emerging countries, however, face a bleak economic outlook as speculation that the U.S. Federal Reserve will slow its asset purchases has triggered a foreign capital pullout. But economists say the rebound in Europe and the United States, along with more stability in China's economy, will support overall global growth. Yurian, Arirang News.
The uncertainty over the U.S. Federal Reserve's timeline for tapering off its massive monetary stimulus program has rocked global markets over the past few months, but the Korean economy seems to be weathering the storm better than others. Our Kim Ji-yeon tells us why.
The Korean economy seems to be in better shape compared to some other global economies, despite speculation of a looming financial crisis due to expectations that the U.S. Fed's pullback from its monetary easing is not far off. Emerging economies such as India, Indonesia, Brazil, and Turkey have seen a rapid outflow of foreign capital, and the value of currencies in those countries has plunged. But this is not the case in Korea. Data show that the country's foreign currency reserves has steadily increased with only relatively mild drops in the stock market. Korea's foreign reserve was at $330 billion as of July, which is a 40% increase compared to 2008, according to the Bank of Korea. The benchmark Kospi has fallen slightly by 1.4% so far this month, but not as significantly as other markets, such as Indonesia's main index, which fell by 9.4% in August compared to a month earlier. Korea's net influx of foreign shares has amounted to $1.6 billion in the past 2 months. The Korean currency fell a mere 0.2% against the U.S. dollar in August, while the Indian rupee tumbled 4.2%. Experts in Seoul have gone as far as to say that the growing crisis in emerging economies may serve as an opportunity for Korea, as foreigners are increasingly viewing it as a safe haven. But they do say that the Korean government needs to do more to set the country apart.
The government needs to emphasize that Korea is prepared by seeking out policies to induce more foreign capital to the country. It should also prepare to cushion any shock that may come from the rapid flow of foreign capital.
The Korean Ministry of Strategy and Finance announced this week that it has a contingency plan to swiftly deal with the market risk. The ministry also vowed to strengthen its monitoring of the market situation at home and abroad. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
The price of a taxi ride in Seoul is about to get a bit pricier. The metropolitan government has passed a bill that will raise the minimum taxi fare in the capital city from about $2 to $2.70 or 3,000 won. The move is intended to ease the burden of rising gas prices on taxi drivers and improve their working conditions. The city council is also reviewing a measure that would extend the hours overnight when overall taxi rates are higher. A final decision will be announced next week. The city government has agreed to freeze bus and subway fares since they were just raised last year. The Ministry of Strategy and Finance says it will closely monitor the sales trend of major food products in Korea ahead of the national Thanksgiving holiday. Vice Finance Minister Chu Kyung-ho held a meeting on Friday morning to come up with measures to stabilize food prices and ease the economic burden of consumers before the Chuseok holiday. The ministry said it plans to expand the supply of agro-fishery products as part of efforts to meet rising demand and preempt unreasonable price hikes. The recent revelation that hundreds of tons of radioactive materials have leaked out of the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant has the world on edge, particularly here in Korea, where concerns over contaminated fish products are growing. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports on the radiation concerns.
Earlier this week, nuclear regulators in Japan raised the seriousness of the leak to a level 3, up from level 1 on the 7-point International Nuclear Event Scale. Tokyo Electric Power Company officials said that plant workers apparently overlooked signs of leaks and failed to notice an open valve for several weeks. The result was 300 tons of water with radioactive particles such as cesium and strontium leaking out of the Fukushima Daiichi plant and into the Pacific Ocean. Japan has come up with numerous methods to contain the leak, but all of them have failed so far. The latest idea is to build an underground containment wall made of ice to try and halt the flow, But how effective will it be?
It's a serious issue, and it's going to be hard to contain it. First of all, the area is too vast and there are too many radioactive leaks. Concerns and doubts are on the rise about whether they'll be able to successfully seal the leaks.
Of the leaked radioactive material, cesium makes up about 90% of the radioactive substances, and it can travel in water. But in time, cesium ingested will be released in time with no ill effects. The other two materials, strontium and tritium, sink to the ocean floor because they are too heavy. These two substances are the ones you have to worry about because they can accumulate in your body for roughly 30 years. But since they are confined to the ocean's depths, experts say they pose little threat. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
And Stephen Che joins us for the late night edition of World Sports. Stephen.
Hey, Sean.
The LA Dodgers rookie sensation Ryu Hyun-jin is pitching this weekend. Can you tell us more about his next game?
No problem. The Dodgers lefty will be on the mound in his team's upcoming matchup against the Boston Red Sox on Saturday at Dodger Stadium. The 26-year-old Ryu is looking for his 13th win of the season after failing to do so against Miami earlier this week. He faces the AL East leading Red Sox, who've hit .318 and scored 5.9 runs in interleague play, both league-leading figures. The Dodgers are hot, having won all but 3 games this month and 9 of the last 10 with Ryu on the mound. Stepping onto the hard court, the U.S. Open Tennis Championships will open on Monday at Flushing Meadows for the 4th and final major of the year. The tournament draw has put the world's top tennis stars on a collision course to determine the champions. For the men's side, last year's champ Andy Murray will have to get through top-ranked Novak Djokovic for a chance to repeat. Meanwhile, for the ladies, odds are that the top-seeded Serena Williams will defend her title as she's on a hot streak this year. Moving on, LG Electronics will become the main sponsor for German league team Bayer Leverkusen after the two sides agreed to the terms on Friday. The 3-year, €15 million deal allows LG to have their logo grace the shirts of South Korean footballer Son Heung-min and his Leverkusen teammates. The electronics giant called it a win-win deal, citing the popularity of the Bundesliga club, and added that their logo looked great with the team's red shirts. And safe at home, it's time to check out Friday's top KBO matchup. The Dusan Bears and the Samsung Lions battled it out in Daegu. The Bears looking to end their 4-game skid, the Lions looking sharp. In the second, 2 men on, Lee Won-suk singles to bring a man home, starting the streak. Now, 2 scores later, it's Min Byung-hun's hit that brings home 2 more. It's 5-0 Dusan with the commanding lead. Now we head to the bottom of the second. The Lions, Kim Sang-soo singles for a run. They add 2 more later. 5-3, Bears still up. On to the 5th. It's again Min Byung-hun. Solo shot to left field. It's going over the wall now. Dusan up 6-3, and Dusan picks up this win 13-4. Now let's take a look at the scores from around the league. That does it for me here in the Sports Center. This has been Stephen Che. Have a great night and check me later for the latest in the world of sports.
A very happy Saturday, everyone. It's me, Kwon So-ah, with the weather forecast on this August 24th. And on this cooler feeling day after all the rain we had, which is not over yet, by the way, so let's get into the details. Although heavy rain alerts were all lifted Friday afternoon, get ready for chances of precipitation at rates of 30 millimeters per hour, along with thunder activity in the southern half of the nation until the afternoon. Now, some south coastal areas may receive light rain on Sunday too. Now, although things have cooled down, it's still going to be pretty hot in the central regions where heat wave advisories remain. But with a low of 23 degrees in Seoul, it'll feel cooler now in the morning at least. However, highs reach to the low 30s in the capital and Daegu, to the high 20s in Gwangju and Busan. And moving over to Daejeon and Jeju Island, which will make it to the low 30s, Dokdo and Munkumgang to about 28 and 20 degrees respectively. Now, the late summer heat is not going to say goodbye all at once, but I hope you do feel a little change. So enjoy your weekend, everyone. And for those watching from other parts of the world, let's get a check on some major travel destinations. Let's begin with our neighboring regions. Tokyo should be pretty rainy and stormy this Saturday, while Beijing and Islamabad can enjoy lots of sunshine, but maybe won't enjoy the heat. It'll be hard to find any clouds in Port Moresby and Jakarta skies, and the same goes for those down under in Perth and Sydney, which will both be pretty warm during the daytime hours, and a slight rise can also be anticipated in Melbourne and Wellington. Now, can you see those sunny icons across North America? Those will be accompanied by mainly warm temperatures, with New York, Washington, and LA all expected to top out at 29 degrees. The same reading is in store for Rio de Janeiro too. Lima and Santiago make it to 17, while Santiago should have early showers before enjoying sunshine later on. And as for Europe, don't be surprised by the drastic drop in temperatures in Moscow and a few morning showers. London will not only get wet, but has chances of thunder as well. Bigger chance of thunderstorms in Paris, while Madrid stays sunny and very, very hot. That can be said in Tripoli, Algiers, and Cairo too. Addis Ababa's wet period goes on, and Cape Town should have partial cloud cover and highs in the high teens. And that's the forecast for now, and this was my last weather forecast. This has been Kwon So-hwa. In whichever part of the world you are, have a great day or night, and hope to see you soon.
That's Late Night Edition at this hour. I'm Sean Lim. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend. We'll see you soon.